I want to tell you a story from my own life, actually. Uh, I'm going to try and think of some stories in the next few days or so that kind of changed my perspective about things in my years, and just kind of share them to do with whatever you like. Enjoy them or taunt me about them, whatever you like. But I lived in San Francisco for 27 years, which at this point is significantly less than half my life, but had a great time in that town. That town taught me so much. There's so much beauty there, so much art there, so much thinking going on there, so much exploration. It's an unbelievable city. Of course, I haven't lived there since probably about 2012. So it's probably changed quite a bit, because that's another thing about that town, is it's changing all the time. And that's kind of where my story comes in. I used to walk quite regularly around the town because the two farthest points apart in town are only 7 miles. So you've got the entire population crammed within the end of that peninsula. And so it's a very dense city. It's great for walking because you can get anywhere. And one day I had walked from the monastery over to a hill that kind of overlooked Fisherman's Wharf and just on the edge of North Beach, which is the Italian part of town. And I was sitting there just kind of enjoying the beauty from looking up on the hill, and I could look over and see the bay, and I could see the Alcatraz, and I could see Marin, and I could see the Golden Gate Bridge and the aquatic park and Fisherman's Wharf and Ghirardelli Square and all of those things. And as I was sitting there, I had a very funny thought come into my mind, because everything that I looked at, when I stopped and thought about it for a moment, I realized that nothing was as it seems. And here's what I mean by that. I was looking down on Ghirardelli Square, which is famous for Ghirardelli chocolate, but it's not a chocolate factory anymore. It's a tourist trap, with an ice cream shop and a chocolate shop, of course, and a mall with lots of other little stores available in it. And it's situated not more than a couple of blocks from Fisherman's Wharf, which really isn't a Fisherman's Wharf anymore. And of course, just beyond that is a small island, Alcatraz Prison, which isn't a prison anymore. And, I was just kind of looking around, one thing after another, and just kind of tripping out on the fact that nothing was what it was. They were all sort of props, as it were. And it got me thinking, because in my, 12 years living just off of Union Street, up in the Vedanta Monastery there, probably every store on that street had changed hands, or gone out of business, or opened up as something else, or got demolished and rebuilt in the years that I was there. And I began wondering, what is it that makes San Francisco San Francisco? And more broadly, what is it that makes anything what it seems to be to us? And I realized how much San Francisco must have changed since its inception, how much of an inner revolution it was going through all the time, so that it was constantly different. And yet somehow it's always been known as San Francisco, and has always meant something that was long-term in people's minds. And I was kind of fascinated about that idea. And I realized that afternoon that it's us that makes a city what it is. Not us as a group, really, because we are also equally trading in and out of places. But it's our own idea of things that make them what they are. And that San Francisco's permanency in my mind was exactly that. It was just in my mind. Its character was related to the things that I had experienced there, the things that I had done there. The nature of the city had to do with what I had been attracted to and what I was interested in exploring. And the things that made it a great town to me were the things that I found to be important in a town. And I began to understand that that's really the nature of this world. And that's why it's such an important effort to find out what our nature is, a nature that is not changing, that isn't subject to the constant transformations of this changing world. And I began to wonder about me. What is it that has allowed me to be the same person my whole life? Even though everything has changed so radically, I've gone through so many personality revolutions in this life, so many different careers, several different religious organizations and beliefs, and several different professions and ways of earning money. I lived in many, many cities around the world. I've done a lot of traveling. So in the midst of all that change, what is it that allows me to know myself? What is it that allows me to be familiar to myself, even though I can tell you that I look nothing like I looked even 5 years ago, certainly not 10 years ago, certainly 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And yet here I am, this sense of I, this me that I know so intimately and yet don't really know at all. Because when I describe myself, when somebody tells me, hey, tell me about yourself, I always start from the outside in, well, I'm a monk and I'm 58 and, I like these things and I don't like these things and I've done these things and I hope to do these things, which is odd because how can we define ourselves by things that are never the same, things that always change? And so it's really a testament to that there is something lasting. There is something at the heart of this changing world that remains constant, that remains identifiable. And I grew very interested in finding out what that is. And that's, roughly what I found in the Vedanta is this knowledge of who we are, of what we are. And the best ways of finding it is to shut out all the things that are constantly changing and just to see what remains, to quiet the mind of changing thoughts, to forget the history, the changing view of history that we have, forget this multitudinous future that we hope for and dream of based on our desires of the moment, our perceived needs of the moment, to set all of that aside, to stop thinking, to stop calculating, to stop projecting and stop remembering. And in that silence of the moment, to listen to that silence, to find out what am I when I'm not being told what I am by anything, by experience, by mind, by body, by history, by future. What is it that remains? It's really an exercise for us to find out. That's what religion is. That's what spiritual life is. It's the quest to manage those conditions through which truth can manifest when we're not distracted by all the wonders of this changing experience of life. So there it is. We live in a city that isn't what it presents itself as, ever changing. We live in a body very much the same. And in all of that change, what is it that allows you to be you? And who exactly, what exactly is that?